I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
My administration will take all necessary steps to safeguard our citizens from this threat.
Hysterical xenophobia.
Be giving Americans a false sense.
Is it accurate that if these steps had not been put in place, it could have been 2 million people dead here in the United States?
Yes. No matter how hard they try to stop us, they can't. We built the greatest economy the world has ever seen, and we're going to do it again. Together, we're beating back the invisible enemy.
What the federal government did was a phenomenal accomplishment.
Through it all, the world has witnessed the unyielding resolve of our incredible American people.
Promise made, promise kept.
And I'm fighting for you, and I love doing it with everything that I have. And you know that. With the grace of God, we will win this war, and we will win this war quickly. And we will make America great again.
Trump campaign is now reaching voters online.
You are seeing the President of the United States. Look at the lines.
You join our movement.
A lot of President Trump supporters here.
Greatest movement in the history of our country.
I think the one thing we can say they all have in common is they are fighters. Both figuratively and literally.
We are leaders in our communities, going to ensure that President Trump gets reelected soundly in November.
Because we have such strong leadership coming from the White House, we are making it through.
God has called President Trump for this purpose in this time. So let's keep voting for him, and we will keep winning.
I honestly don't know why Joe Biden is running. He can't remember anything.
President Trump has been a champion for families and in particular for mothers.
And he ran on, I'm going to build the wall.
We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. We will make America great again.
Welcome to Team Trump Online.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Military Families for Trump Online. I'm Marc Lauder, Director of Strategic Communications for the Trump-Pence 2020 campaign. And let's start off today by recognizing that it is Armed Forces Day, and we honor the millions of Americans who are serving our country in uniform here at home and around the world. But one of the things we've got to understand and recognize that it's not just the men and women in uniform that we need to think of on days like this. It's their families back home and stationed with them around the world. When you sign up to serve our military, it's not just you that's signing up. Your family is also impacted and affected greatly. And that's why we're happy to launch a brand new coalition called Military Families for Trump, because the president and his administration support the families who support the men and women who are serving our country. I am pleased to be joined tonight by two Military Family for Trump Coalition board members, Joe Kent and Tiffany Smiley. Welcome to tonight's event.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Joe, let's start with you. Share with us a little bit about your story, about your service and that of your family, and why it's so important that military families support President Trump.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Joe Kent. I served for over 20 years in Army Special Operations. My wife, Hannah Kent, she served for 15 years in the United States Navy Special Operations before she was killed in action fighting ISIS last January in Syria. Supporting President Trump is very important to me and to my family because President Trump has enabled our military to defeat our enemies, namely ISIS in Iraq and Syria, has enabled us to push back on Iran and fight them for the first time really in 40 years. President Trump has also enabled us to push back on Russian and Chinese aggression. So supporting President Trump and his continued success is critical to our nation and to our military.
No, well, thank you for your service and that of your family. Tiffany, why don't you share your story with us as well?
Yes, so I grew up in a farm, rural area in southeastern Washington State. Didn't have anyone that served in the military in my family, just knew the farming life. Ended up marrying my high school sweetheart, Scotty Smiley. I always joke, our new last name was Smiley. It was like the picture of the American dream. He had just graduated from West Point, this newly commissioned officer. And I was a nurse. I'm a bachelor's in science and nursing. It didn't get any better than that. And it was the picture of the American dream until I was awoken out of bed on April 6th, 2005. 3 a.m., I got a phone call. But this time, I was excited because Scotty would call at different times. And so as a military spouse, you keep your phone really close to you and you're ready to jump out of bed and grab that phone at any moment. But this time it was someone else's voice on the other end of the line. And this gentleman just broke down and started sobbing on the phone and said, Scotty's come face to face with a suicide car bomb. There's shrapnel in both of his eyes and he's flatlined. We don't even know if he's going to live. And this warrior just broke down and started sobbing and saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And it was in that moment that my American dream blew up into a million pieces. Your loved one is miles away from you. I couldn't go see him. I couldn't go talk to him. All I knew is he was in Balad, Iraq, in a support hospital, clinging to life. And that, a few hours later, I resigned from my nursing job, took my first one-way flight out to Washington, D.C., walked into Walter Reed and spoke truth, hope, and life into Scotty. Our American dream was blown up into a million pieces, and I didn't know how we were going to rebuild it. But one thing I did know is I had a vision for something better. I didn't know it was going to be as hard as it was to fight for what was right, fight for the American dream. We had everything stripped out from under us. And shortly after being at Walter Reed, I was brought into a room with VA administrator, doctors, high-level officials. I had power of attorney, and they said, Mrs. Smiley, you have power of attorney. Sign the medical retirement to, get your husband out of the military and start the medical retirement process. I looked at them and I said, no, I'm not signing it. They looked at me a little bit confused, like, what do you mean you're not signing it? And I said, I believe my husband should make that decision and we should allow him to fully recover before this decision is made. I'm not signing it. And the doctor pushed it in front of me a little bit further and he said, ma'am, you don't understand. Your husband has no eyes. There has never been someone to continue service to our country blind. Like, why would you not sign the paperwork? I said, I'm not signing it. I knew our American dream was going to take a fight, and I knew it would be standing up for what I knew was right. So I refused to sign that paperwork. Scotty did go on to become the first blind active duty officer to continue service to our country. So he served a whole another decade completely blind. We moved 8 times in 10 years. He went on to Duke and got his MBA. I think the hardest part is in that story is knowing that fight was so here we had served our country and then all the bureaucracy, all the red tape that we had to go through just to survive. But the joy at the end of the story is that the American dream is alive and well. Our family lives it every day. We have skin in the game. This country has given back to us tenfold. We have businesses. We are thriving. We are able to continue service to our country. And the Trump administration has given us a voice and given us this opportunity to say, we live in a great country. Yes, we sacrificed greatly for it, and we every day live in that sacrifice. But there is so much joy in hard work, in believing in American dream, and believing in something better for our children.
Yeah, Tiffany, your story is so inspirational, and I know that you and your husband share it, and it motivates people around the country for that. One of the things that you mentioned in your recovery, and as your husband continued his service, was the fact that you moved an additional 8 times around the world during that period. And I know that one of the things that military spouses and military families go through is the constant relocation, the uprooting of your life, and going to find new schools for your children, new jobs for yourself, while your spouse serves our country in different locales. One of the things that First Lady Melania Trump and Second Lady Karen Pence, who is also a military mother, have recognized is the need to support the spouses and families of our military service people while they are deploying around the country and around the world. You've been a part of those events. Tell me what kind of experiences you've seen coming from that.
Yes, it is so refreshing because military spouses are the most overeducated, underutilized, and underemployed subgroup. And a lot of people don't realize that. It was challenging to go move 8 times in 10 years, and you walk in and they hear you're a military spouse, and then they think twice about hiring you. But Mrs. Pence, Melania Trump, they have rallied around the value that spouses have to offer. And they have made it a number one priority to ensure that we are utilized because our country depends on it. Our country depends on our spouses and military families to have opportunity. We want to utilize, our country needs it. It's not, I always say it's not the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do. So I've met in Mrs. Pence's office. I've shared my story. And what I love is they listen to these stories and they go out and they make it happen. They've given military spouses so much opportunity and put us at the top of the list and change language for employers. So there's no, you don't want to, the biggest disservice is not hiring a military spouse. So it's been incredible to be a part of that and to watch it and, watch military families thrive.
No, you're absolutely right. And Joe, you have a different kind of perspective with this as well as being both a member of the military and the spouse of someone. What kind of experiences have you brought to this?
My biggest experience has been unfortunately, as a Gold Star husband, as a surviving spouse after my wife was killed. And that started the first day I went over to receive Shannon's remains. President Trump, First Lady, Vice President Pence, the entire national security cabinet were there to grieve with us. President Trump took time out of his very busy schedule to meet individually with all 4 families if he wanted to. My wife was killed along with John Farmer, Scott Wirtz, and Kadir Taha. And President Trump took the time to chat with all of us individually. He took 20 minutes to talk with me privately. That meant the world to me. I had served in some of the same locations that Shannon had fought in, so the wars are very personal to my family. President Trump understood that. He wanted to hear the ground truth from that area of the world, what was going on. So I really appreciated him just taking that time. And that didn't just stop there at Dover. After that, President Trump invited all of us Gold Star families from the incident in Syria and then 50 others to the White House on Memorial Day. That event didn't receive a lot of press coverage, but it was hosted in the West Wing in the residence. Again, President Trump took the time to meet with, I think, all the families that wanted to chat with him individually, him and the First Lady and the Second Lady and the Vice President hosted us. We had a candle lighting vigil. So that personally really impacted with all the families. We all got a chance to tell our stories to each other and the president, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the entire national security cabinet that were there. So on a personal level, that really helped. President Trump also took the initiative to appoint a Gold Star representative at Pentagon who serves directly for the Secretary of Defense. And Trump's the first president in our history that's done this. And he didn't just pick a D.C. bureaucrat. He actually picked Jane Horton, who's also a Gold Star survivor. Her husband was killed in Afghanistan fighting for our country. So he put someone there who understands the issues at a deep and personal level. And Jane goes out of her way to reach out to every single Gold Star family. And through Jane, we can speak directly with the White House many times. So that's really helped flatten things out and make every Gold Star voice heard. So President Trump's care and attention that he's put on the Gold Star families has been just incredible.
You're absolutely right. And thank you. Our country owes you, your family, and of course, Tiffany and Scotty as well, a debt that we could never fully repay. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue this discussion and talk about ways that the Trump administration is moving forward and helping the families of our men and women in the military and our veterans. Be right back.
go.
This is a crisis.
This is no time for Donald Trump's record of hysterical xenophobia.
Biden's son inked a $1 billion deal with a subsidiary of the Bank of China.
Why are we getting nervous, man?
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They're not bad folks.
Since the outbreak, the Communist Party has been mobilizing overseas organizations to buy local supplies and send them to China.
The growth of China is overwhelmingly in our interest.
What a beautiful history we wrote together.
Banning all travel will not stop it.
The president is right. That travel restriction on China, as every public health official we've talked to said, bought the country time.
Hysterical xenophobia. Xenophobia.
Joe.
I complimented him on dealing with China. I'm not going nuts.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to Military Families for Trump Online. I'm Marc Lotter. The president has signed many executive orders to honor our military men and women in uniform, taken actions to support and rebuild our military, but he has also taken action through an executive order to support the families of those who are serving. And Tiffany, I wanted to start with you, and you mentioned this about how military spouses are some of the most highly educated and underutilized people in America. And what can we do, and what has President Trump done to help military spouses be able to practice their trade and to fully support and serve in this economy?
They've made huge strides. The Mission Act was incredible, and putting us out in the forefront and making it known to businesses and employers that this is a subset that you want in your business. And also, so a lot of military spouses are nurses or doctors or teachers, and you can't go across state lines without going through the whole process and getting your license over and over again, right? Going through all the state fees, testing. And so a lot of times if you're moving somewhere for a year, it's not worth it to go through that whole process. And the Trump administration is solving that problem for us. They're making sure that, and different states are jumping on board that if you have a license, I'm licensed in Washington State, I could move to Georgia and be able to jump right in and get a job and start practicing with that license. So little things like that make a huge difference. I worked in jobs that I was, overeducated for just to have a job. And you move consistently, every 1 to 2 years. And I think another very an amazing thing that they've done as well is bringing to light the power that we have in, working from home. You don't have to just be showing up. We are so connected nowadays. We need to be utilizing the subgroup. So they've done an incredible job. They've given us a voice, given us the opportunity. And like what Joe said, I met with President Trump, and I was so impressed. He wanted to hear me out. He asked multiple questions. He wanted the real story. And this is where we have an opportunity as Americans. We really do have an opportunity. What do we want for the future? Do we want a president who gives voice to the American people? Or do we want someone who just believes in their own agenda and adding more red tape and taking away small business and taking away, all of that affects our national security in a huge way. So the Trump administration has given me personally opportunity to share my story, not only that, but to live the American dream and give other military spouses the same space to use their education. Our country needs them, and they've provided a way for us to use that.
Yeah. Joe, obviously, if you've got anything to add on that, I also wanted to say too, since you also served in uniform, what does it mean to you when you are deployed to know that that your family back home has the support that they need so they can support you?
Absolutely critical, just as stressful as the demands of a deployment and being at war are. Knowing that things are taken care of back home is absolutely critical to the warfighters. If they have to worry about that type of stuff, then their job is not going to be done completely because their head's not going to be in the game. President Trump restoring the damage that was done during sequestration and the budget cuts of the Obama administration has really helped out, not only of readiness from the training force, but also for those back home. President Trump took care of the cuts that were made to the military housing crisis. He's working on that. He's also working on, as Tiffany mentioned, the Mission Act, which helped military families choose their care providers. That's impacted me greatly. I had to move after Shannon to get my sons close to my family, so I'm kind of far away from the military base, but we're still on the TRICARE system. The Mission Act really enabled us to see the doctors that are the most close and the most convenient for us. Prior to that, that being taken care of by the Trump administration, that just wouldn't have been possible.
No, absolutely right. And as we have said, not only do our men and women in uniform need that support, but so do those families who support them back home. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the choice that we face in this election between what President Trump has done to support our military and military families and that of the leadership of Joe Biden. We'll be right back.
During the coronavirus pandemic, Joe Biden criticized President Trump's China travel ban.
Hysterical xenophobia.
He was dead wrong. For 40 years, Biden's been wrong on China, supporting trade deals that destroy American jobs, giving China most favored nation status, letting China walk all over us.
The beautiful history we wrote together.
But Biden has never been more wrong than now. Joe Biden in the White House would be a deadly mistake.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
In 2016, we built an unbeatable operation that changed history. Now, we unveil our next breakthrough. The exclusive Trump 2020 app. This isn't just an app. This is your source for real news, not fake news. Straight from the campaign and the president himself. This is your direct line to give input on key campaign issues. Your portal to register voters. Host MAGA meetups. Your scheduler. Your application on becoming a Trump team leader. Join millions and get a front row seat to our virtual events. Watch Team Trump every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Earn points. Get rewarded. Get the presidential photo. Oh, and did we mention this is your personal shopper too? So just to repeat, this isn't just an app. This is your tool to keep America great. Join the Army for Trump and download the app today.
We choose truth over facts.
Welcome back to Military Families for Trump Online. I'm Marc Lotter. Well, as we know, President Trump has increased spending for our military, rebuilt the military, and given our men and women in uniform long overdue pay raises. When you compare that, on the other hand, Joe Biden has actually said he would cut military spending. Joe, as a warfighter, when you hear those kinds of comments coming out, I mean, what does that message say to you?
With Joe Biden, it's very clear because we've seen 8 years of what Joe Biden would do. He's been in the Oval Office before as the vice president, and during the Obama administration, many promises were made about ending wars and a more pragmatic foreign policy, and that just didn't materialize. We continued to deploy to war, but without a clear-cut military objective on how we would defeat the enemy like we've had at the Trump administration. There was no will to win, but we were still deployed. We were still in harm's way, and our training budgets were slashed dramatically. I was in special operations, so we were a little bit immune from it. We still felt the brunt of it. Our conventional forces, they bear a heavy burden of cuts and sequestration while still being expected to deploy to 2 active wars that the Obama and Biden administration said they would end, but could not end, and in fact only got worse with the expansion of ISIS, the expansion of Iran, the expansion of Russia and China as well. So the demands didn't go away for military service members to go out and put their lives on the line, but the support did go away. So with Joe Biden, it's very clear we would just return to Obama-level deployments, which are never ending, and sequestration, which would slash our budget and kill readiness.
Yeah, Tiffany, obviously you bring a perspective as well with this, including with your family.
Yes. Yeah, we can't stay in endless wars and then not have a VA that's there to support the families when they come back. And I experienced this on a really real level. I remember being at Walter Reed and crumpling down on the floor and crying because I was thinking, how do we help these? How do we change this? And I can only help Scotty right now, but how do we help everyone? And I remember I made a promise to myself that someday I would come back and I would make it better. And this, the Trump administration has provided that opportunity for military families to have a voice. And so Scotty and I's 3 sons, they were born after. So Scotty's never seen them. They were born after Scotty was blinded. And recently I was speaking at an event and someone asked me, why do you advocate? Why do you go to DC? Why do you spend your time doing this? And I said, because I'm raising 3 boys who I want them to want to serve this country. It's the only way we'll preserve our freedom. And I want to know if what happened to their father happens to them, that they have a country behind them, that it will be better for them. And if I can't say that with certainty, that's why I'm fighting every day. I'm fighting every day for them, for the future, like bigger picture. Where do we want to be in 10 years, 20 years, where, our freedoms cannot be taken away. We have to ensure our security. And how do we secure our national security? It is through our military, through our families, through the support that they get. A nation that forgets its defenders will itself soon be forgotten. And I think we really need to remember that. And this administration brings that home. They truly believe in that. They see that vision and they want it better for the future generations.
So today, being Armed Forces Day, I want to give each of you an opportunity to send a message, to share a message, not only for those men and women who are serving in uniform, but for their families and their husbands, wives, children, and their parents, brothers and sisters. Tiffany, why don't you start off on this Armed Forces Day with a final message?
Yes. I love the words from Reagan. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. I think now is our time to stand for your values, to stand for the ideals of this country. We have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to fight for our freedom, to fight for our businesses, to fight for that American dream. And we have an opportunity to vote in this country. What an incredible gift. So we must remember that we are more resilient than ever before. And I have great hope for this country, that it will be better, with more opportunity, safer, and provide an incredible future for our children.
So well said. Joe?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone that's deployed or supporting a warfighter that's deployed right now, so the families and all those that are going forth in harm's way in defense. I can't thank them enough for what they're doing. Just want them to stay focused on their task at hand. And then, as Tiffany said, remember they have the opportunity to vote coming up this November. It's going to be a pretty clear-cut choice. President Trump's put us on a trajectory to allow our military to defeat our enemies that we haven't had in this country, quite frankly, in my lifetime. I've served for over 20 years. The Trump administration has enabled us to destroy our enemies and put us back on a trajectory that puts America first. We're not fighting for an ideology of rebuilding nations or extending a hand to countries that don't want our help. Trump has put our country first, and our military is going to need to be ready to stay focused on combating China and Russia in the future as we wind down these endless wars. President Trump's the only president who's actually presented a plan and taken steps towards ending the wars. He's probably going to need another 4 years to actually make that happen. But considering the fact that he ran on defeating ISIS, we've defeated ISIS. He ran on pushing back against Iran. We've fought back against Iran like we never had before. in over 40 years. I think President Trump has earned all of our votes going forward this November. So thanks again for everyone that's deployed, and I hope to see him home soon.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Joe and Tiffany, for the service and sacrifice by you and your families. Again, we owe you a debt that will never fully be repaid. And thank you for joining us again tonight and tuning in. If you want to join the fight to protect healthcare, to protect our troops and honor them, and to reelect President Trump, make sure you download our new app. You can download Trump 2020. It's available on Apple and or your Android devices. You can also sign up armyfortrump.com. Let us know you want to get involved. And as always, you can text family to 88022 and join Military Families for Trump. It's one of the many great coalitions we have out there supporting the re-election of our great president. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you for all you're doing to help re-elect the president, and we'll see you next time online.